All right, you want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days? Yeah, I bet. Who doesn't? You want to do it, and you want it to be extremely easy. Of course. I can do this. I can make this happen. I can even show you. But the reality is, you know you, and I have a feeling I know you too. But anyway, welcome to Walk, Talk, Vent. Let's do this.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. Today, we're going to visit with Sarah, the binge eating therapist, and she's going to explain why we don't always feel full after eating. She's going to answer that age-old question for us. So I'm going to be quiet and let's hear what Sarah has to say.
Welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah. I'm a psychotherapist and author of the book I Can't Stop Eating. This video is for you if you are somebody who knows what it's like to feel bottomless around food. That bottomless hunger where it feels like you can just keep eating and maybe you don't even feel full. Or maybe you feel full, but you still feel compelled to keep eating. It's really distressing to feel this out of control. And it breaks my heart because so many people, they develop this belief that they're just greedy and out of control. But I want to share with you 6 reasons why you might be experiencing this. And this will also offer some insight into how you can feel more satisfied and regulated around food. And the first one, we just have to get it out of the way. I know I bang on about it, but it is, are you eating enough? And not just are you eating enough, but have you been eating enough? So for some people, you come off the back of a diet, maybe you've lost some weight, but once you're no longer adhering to the rules of the diet, you experience this bottomless hunger and you want to just eat and eat and eat. We keep hearing about how diets don't work because the majority of people regain the weight. And yet, people still blame themselves because they're saying, yes, but I'm the one who's overeating after the diet, so therefore it is my fault. Not understanding that your brain is measuring how much food intake is coming in and how much energy is being expended. If that has been out of balance for a while, your brain will dial down those hormones that make you feel satisfied when you eat. It is driving you to eat more. And I know we think we should be stronger than our biology, but the reality is we have these bodies and a very, very powerful primal brain that can influence our behavior. You may or may not have heard of weight set point theory. Now, this is a theory, but the idea is that our bodies have a set range that they want to be weight-wise. And if we drive our weight below that, our bodies will drive us to eat more to get us back into that weight set point. The theory goes that yo-yo dieting means that your set point gets set higher than it would have normally. So you might be thinking that actually you're aiming for something that you believe is a healthy weight for you. Or maybe you're judging what your weight should be according to a BMI chart, when your weight set point could be higher. And each time you try and drive your weight down lower, you trigger that compulsive eating.
Well, guys, I think that's really super interesting. Whenever I look at the BMI charts or whenever the doctor goes over them with you, I can't help but feel like they were based off 1955 America, right? Where the guys were 5'9" and 160 pounds, right? And the gals were maybe what, 5'3", 5'4", and 100 and maybe 30 pounds, right? So I don't necessarily disagree with her at all when she says that. I feel like a lot of times we judge ourselves based on these 1955 standards that might just be a little bit out of whack.
The second reason for really struggling to feel your fullness is because we're disconnected. I would imagine the majority of people are distracted in some way for most of the time when they're eating. There is a difference between enjoying your favorite TV show and still being connected to eating and being completely zoned out. We have minds that can be very good at detaching from our body's signals. Our minds can travel into the future, into the past. And another reason for disconnection is if you are feeling conflicted about what you're eating, then often we want to disconnect, we want to shut off because we don't want to have to sit there eating and listening to our voice tell us why we shouldn't be eating this. So we switch off from our thinking and we switch off from our sensations. That combination will make it very hard to feel your fullness. The third reason I want to share bounces off the back of this. And the third reason that you might be struggling to feel full or you have that bottomless hunger is guilt. We have our thoughts and we have our emotions. So if we think of guilt as an emotion which has accompanying thoughts, the feeling of guilt, it's a heavy one. It feels like you are carrying a weight. We call it a burden. We say the burden of guilt. Now, how are you supposed to feel burdened and guilty and at the same time feel satisfied and content with what you're eating. Those two aren't very compatible. It's really difficult to feel satisfied at the same time as feeling guilty. You can if it's just a little bit of guilt. Many people I meet, they have so much guilt around what they're eating. They feel terrible about their eating behaviors. And there's a kind of cruel irony that that works against them, and it might be working against you. And the fourth one is about anticipating impending restriction. So maybe you're somebody who never gets around to dieting, but you're always planning on overhauling your eating, cutting out certain foods, eating only what you consider to be healthy foods. And here's the thing, our primal brains are always eavesdropping on our thoughts, what we are thinking about our environment and what we are planning. You have had the experience of thinking about something that's not actually happening, and your body reacts as if it has. Maybe it feels anxious or it feels worried. Well, biology itself can anticipate. And if you're planning tomorrow, you're always saying tomorrow, I'm going to change the way I eat, I'm going to cut this out, I'm going to be more restrictive or more controlled or whatever it might be. What happens between now and then? Now and then your brain is going like, right, we have to eat all the foods we can. You can keep going and going. Any sense of satisfaction is far away because your brain is saying you need to eat all these foods now while you can.
Well, yes, the sun will come out tomorrow. So Sarah brings up a good point here. I think a lot of times when people contemplate going on walking or dieting or exercise routines, right? I think a lot of times they'll say, okay, well, since I'm going to start that on Monday, I'm going to eat whatever the heck I want to this weekend, right? And then they end up just causing more grief to their body, right? So she brings up some really refreshing, interesting points. Let's see where else she goes from here.
In the intuitive eating world, we call this Last Supper eating, because it really does feel like the Last Supper, the last time you're going to eat these foods. So you end up eating even more than you would have if you were not planning to restrict, or planning to cut back, or however you're speaking to yourself about it.
So yeah, she brings up another great point. So because you're going on a diet Monday, you decide to have your last great supper tonight, right? And then you end up waking up tomorrow, forgetting about stuff, busting open the Captain Crunch, and then tomorrow never ends up coming with regards to starting your exercise routine. She brings up some real gems here, and I love the way she's talking about things in a different way than what we've heard before, because we've heard everything over the last 50 some odd days. She's kind of giving us a refreshing, new take on things.
And the fifth reason why you might experience that bottomless feeling around food is because you are using food to change your state. You're using food for a function or a reason that is completely independent of hunger. So this could be if you're experiencing depression, you're using food to give yourself a boost. Or if you're experiencing anxiety, you're using food to calm you down. Therefore, whenever it feels like you can stop, that is not going to be about whether you're full or not. It's going to be about whether the food has performed the function you needed it to. And this is a tough one because in these situations, it's not really food that is the problem. It might become a problem, but the problem is underneath that. Food has become a symptom of a deeper problem, in which
I probably shouldn't have stopped it there, but again, she brings up a great point. I think a lot of times we gain weight throughout the year because we have moments where we're extremely bored. And I was always the type that when I'm extremely bored, that's when I'm going to reach for the potato chips and dip. That's when I'm going to reach for the bag of cookies. That's when I'm going to go fix myself a bowl of ice cream. And I think a lot of us do this. I've talked to many of my viewers that'll say, hey, I'm that cereal person too, Jesse. We love cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and dessert sometimes. I love everything she's saying. It really makes a lot of sense.
In which case, you can get very distracted in trying to fix the food when actually the function that the food is performing, it's about looking underneath that and doing the work there, which could be about trying to manage your depression, trying to cope with your anxiety, finding other ways to address those problems are probably going to be necessary in order for food to not always be the go-to in those situations. And the sixth one, and I've done this one last for a reason, and I also want to stress the importance of approaching this in a gentle way. It could be that you're not eating enough protein and fiber. The most satisfying combination of foods that we can eat all together is carbohydrate, protein, fat, and fiber all at once, because that is a very satiating combination. What you'll find is if you are often eating foods that are mostly carbohydrate based, you might be finding that it is harder to feel full up and satisfied. There are a lot of foods out there that are deliberately designed to be delicious, and they are. And I don't want to scare anybody away from these foods at all. We're looking at this through a gentle nutrition lens. So this is about adding things in, not getting frightened and trying to cut foods out, because we are looking at how to feel your fullness, how to feel more satisfied, and then hoping that that has a moderating effect on your food intake, rather than saying to yourself, oh gosh, that means I have to stop eating these kinds of foods, and then getting in a battle with yourself about it. These 6 reasons are not the only reasons. This may not be the only things going on for you. There are 3 more honorable mentions, but I'm going to pop them in the comments below because they are more physiological, and there are people out there more qualified than I am to talk about them. If you found this video helpful, you may also want to check out this one, where I really focus on increasing that sense of satisfaction around food.
So check this out. I was looking at Sarah, and the title of her channel is called The Binge Eating Therapist, right? I was taking a look at multiple of her videos, and I wanted to share all of them with you guys. So I recommend you check out her channel, subscribe to her work, and check out her content. I think you'll love it. I think she gives a really refreshing take. I think there's a lot of reasons that we end up overeating. One of the things that she said that I just absolutely know is true, because I did it myself, is if you know you're going to start a diet tomorrow, why not pig out today? It's one of the worst things you can do, because then if tomorrow never comes, you're just in a worse spot than ever. Speaking of spots, why don't you go grab those spotty shoes of yours? Let's go for a walk.
Good morning, Venters. How are you? It's time for good story time. Yeah! Yeah! It's time for good story time. So check this out. I don't know what it is with the Good News Network, but they have their hands right on top of the pulse of the heart of the city of Baltimore, Maryland. When I grew up and throughout my whole life, I've always seen Baltimore, Maryland as like synonymous with like not the best stuff in the world happening, right? And if you guys remember last month or so ago, Baltimore had that situation where that boat hit that bridge, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I've just always seen Baltimore as one of those cities where you hear a lot of bad stuff come out of it. And I could be wrong, right? Maybe it's Maryland and DC and not really Baltimore, but I feel like it's the Baltimore area where you just hear nothing but bad news. But we've talked about their little trash gobbler that they have there in their little waterway area. And we've talked about some other good stories too, and today is no different. Today I'm going to tell you guys about a wonderful young lady named Araba Maze. 3 years ago, she was on the stoop of her niece's home in Baltimore, and she was reading her niece a story from a book. And before she knew it, that daily or weekly story time that she had with her niece expanded to many of the kids in the neighborhood. And after she finished her book, the kids would say, Araba, will you please read another book? And Araba would tell these kids, go home and, read one of your own books with your parents. And they told her, they said, Araba, we don't have any books. And Araba, who at the time worked as a librarian many, many miles away, came to find out that in Baltimore, it's one of the leading book deserts in the whole country. To give you an idea of the book disparity out there, apparently there's about 300 kids to every one acceptable book for them to be reading, right? Now that sounds crazy when you live in America and you find out that there's a place like that, and I had a hard time accepting that number, but let's assume they're right. If there's 300 kids to every one book, you're going to have a situation where a lot of kids are growing up not knowing how to read. So Araba went to her library, started getting surpluses of books, and started taking them back to these Baltimore neighborhoods. And she would have this stoop reading situation where she's reading to the kids of the neighborhoods. Isn't that wonderful? So check this out. She's reading to her niece and her niece's friends. And she decides to go on TikTok and Instagram, and she decides to start raising funds. And she's successful. She ends up getting a free book vending machine. And since 2023, so just over the past year, her and the book vending machines that she's a part of have been able to distribute over 7,000 books to the kids of the Baltimore area. And I just thought that was wonderful. So now she's no longer known as Araba Maze. She's known as Storybook Maze. And I just thought that was amazing. She actually has her own YouTube channel called Storybook Maze, M-A-Z-E. So if you guys want to check out her channel, she's actually one of the people in this world that's doing a lot of really neat, really good things. Her latest endeavor is she wants to raise $100,000 so that she can have a book trolley, kind of like the trolley that we all grew up watching on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. She wants this book trolley to be able to go up and down the streets of Baltimore neighborhoods, no different than an ice cream truck. But instead of ice cream, she wants to be able to distribute free books to the kids of the neighborhood. And I just think that's amazing. So that's her goal. She wants to raise $100,000 for this book trolley. She wants to get rid of the book deserts, not only in Baltimore, but all throughout the country. And I just think, my goodness, what better person to support? And if you can support her by going to Storybook Maze's YouTube channel and subscribing, you might be able to help her get that much closer to her goal. So I just thought that was really fascinating. So to celebrate Storybook Maze, I'm going to take you by our little personal library that we actually have in our neighborhood here. So this little library, to my knowledge, has been up for about the past 8 or 9 years, but that's only how long I've kind of kept track of it. For all I know, this book thing's been up for more years than that, but we're gonna walk right by it today. It's basically a give and go little public library here in our neighborhood. And I think when you see it, I think your heart's gonna melt because it's so adorable. And you might have one of these in your libraries. But basically, these are people that have agreed to let a little box be put up in their front yard. And what it has is basically a couple dozen books that kids and adults can come, bring a book of their own so that people can read it. And when you leave a book, you can take a book. So it's a really neat little book sharing idea. You know, if there are such things as book deserts, and if kids aren't necessarily achieving the same levels of success in schools anymore, then maybe we ultimately owe it to ourselves as a country to start establishing more posts where kids can read a book. You know, it's all about when you get kids introduced to reading on if they're going to end up growing up being literate or not, or decency, or having good literacy, I should say. Hopefully they have decency, right? But the main thing is if you have thousands of kids that are 5, 6, 7 years of age, and they don't have access to books, and the only thing they're reading is text messages from people that write words like LOL and BTW and, you know, and all these different little abbreviations, you're going to have a situation in a couple of years where many of the adults don't really know how to read properly. And I've been hearing that a lot of 7th graders around the country are reading at 4th and 5th grade levels, and they like to blame that on the pandemic, which makes sense, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. But I think there comes a point where you have to get rid of the excuses and start finding ways to get results. So Storybook Maze, good for you. You are a doer. Where so many people are talkers, like yours truly, you're a doer. So I think that's wonderful. Keep up the good work. And then, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to walk by our own little public library, and who knows, maybe it'll motivate you guys where you live to want to start something like this as well. I think we all have the ability to change the world, but we have to find our little way of doing so. So, Storybook Maze. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Be nice. Be nice.
So, Storybook Maze found her way to help the kids in the neighborhoods of Baltimore. And I just think that's wonderful. So let's hope that her endeavors on TikTok, Instagram, and any other type of GoFundMe situation she puts up, let's wish her success. I love reading books. I haven't been reading books the last couple years like I used to, because I was the type that I could read 2, 3, 4 books at a time. A couple chapters out of one book, switch over to another. And I think we all have stories like that, where there's periods in our life where we're reading material like crazy. Some of us like nonfiction stories that deal with, intrigue and, really interesting things, that really happen in real life. I myself have always been more of like a classical science fiction. So I would like reading stuff like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, Ray Bradbury. I always liked science fiction. I liked science fiction where they would make predictions about the future. That was my jam. So if you are a book reader and you like Stephen King, or if you like Jane Austen books, or this, that, and the other, please let us know in the comment section. I think it's neat when I find out there's fellow people that enjoy reading, or at least enjoyed reading as much as I did or do. So I think when you guys see this little library, I think it'll make you smile. And you guys might already have stuff like this in your communities too. If you do, just know that that's yet another thing that makes your community a really neat place to walk. So I'm going to show you this, and I don't think I've shown it to you guys before, but it's a shame that I haven't, because it is really a neat thing. It's basically just a decorative box with a glass front and a bunch of books in it. I don't know if you guys remember, but when I first walked with you guys, I was urging you guys to time different routes in your neighborhood. And this street here that we're coming up to, Evans, I timed it, and it was about 10, 11 minutes from going to, where I start my walk to here. So I always wonder if you guys ended up doing that. Did you end up timing different routes in the neighborhood so you knew a route that you could take that was 10, 15 minutes, another route in the neighborhood that's maybe 30 minutes. Maybe you have a super big route in the neighborhood whenever you feel like walking for an hour or more. Maybe you could share those little thoughts in the comments. And I'm really happy that the book library is still up. Wouldn't that be embarrassing if I was bragging about this little mobile book library in the neighborhood and it wasn't there? But it is, yay! So we're gonna walk right by it. And every time I look into it, the books are shuffled up a bit, which tells me that people do actually use this little book trading post. And when you see it, I think you're gonna smile. It's pretty adorable. And the person that put the box in front of their house, I don't know their name, but good for you. What a great way to be a wonderful part of your neighborhood. So this person probably has dozens of kids that come to her house every month just to check out a new book. Very, very cool. Notice I didn't say hundreds of kids, because it's still a book. It's not a video game, right? If it was video game trade-off, I bet there'd be thousands of kids because we love video games even more than books. But take a look at this. I'm going to flip you guys around. This little box here, right here, contains all these different books. Isn't that the coolest thing? That is so neat. So what you do is you come here and you open the bookstore. You bring your book here, and then you have a book that you can take. And you can see by the look of these books, they have been read. So that's kind of neat. What do you guys think of that? Doesn't that kind of make you wish that you had something like that in your neighborhood? You know, sometimes the kids need to know that you care. And if that's something where you could get in touch with your local library and convince them that, hey, I'd like to put up a box in my neighborhood so that people could come and take a book and leave a book. And because there's so many used bookstores out there that are probably struggling, right? They're probably mom and pop owned. You might even have one of your favorite used bookstores. What if you could go and have a talk with them, see if they want to donate 100 books or, you know, maybe a couple hundred books that you could put up in a box like that and start something like that in your neighborhood. Very, very cool. And you want to know what a worst case scenario is? You come out one day and you realize that half the books have been taken and not returned or not shared. That just means that you're successful, right? That just, I mean, if someone's going to steal a book, so be it. Let them have it, you know? If that feeds their brain, trust me, they'll pay it forward one of these days, you know? So if you think that's really neat, put it in the comments. Because when I heard the Storybook Maze story, I just thought it was fascinating. And I wanted to check out if it was legit and real. So I YouTubed Storybook Maze. And sure enough, she has her own channel. She's been on Good Morning America. She's done a lot of the local and national TV shows to get her message out. Her YouTube channel, as of this morning, had 480 subscribers. So if you believe in her cause and you want to help her in any way, shape, or form, you could help her by something as simple as just subscribing to her YouTube channel. Yay! So anyway, I heard that and it just blew my mind. There are a lot of people out there that do love kids, want to do the right thing for their neighborhoods. And if that doesn't give you hope for the future, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. If you have any friends or family members or people that you know that are doing special things in your neighborhood, let me know in the comments, because I might be able to find them on YouTube or something, and maybe we could share a nice story and good news about what they're doing in the world. I would have never known that this young lady was starting a trolley and had all these great goals to get kids reading. And when you hear her talk, she just really lights up her room. And so, you know, if any of you guys check out her channel, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's a great way to smile, because it's hard not to smile when people are doing good, wonderful things, especially for kids, you know? Seems like every time you turn on the news, it's some devastating story of murders or child abuse or poverty, right? And this story is no different. It's dealing with kids that, you know, are maybe in a financial situation where their parents can't really afford books and stuff. But you know what? We've talked about this. There's no reason why you can't go down to your public library and get a book for free, you know? So that's why when I hear about things like book deserts, I always question, you know, is that real? Is there really a big city in America where you can't go to a bookstore and find a book, you know? Is there not a public library somewhere in Baltimore? And I'm sure there is. And maybe if you're really in a bad spot financially and your parents don't have gas money for a car, you know, maybe it is darn near impossible for you to actually get to the public libraries in Baltimore. So, you know, here's a way where she's able to bring the books to the kids. So very, very cool. You know, a lot of times we're able to accomplish things simply by having a plan. And I love how her plan was kind of improvised at first, because she didn't know that the kids would love
her reading to them, but God, that must really tug at your heart when you're reading and all of a sudden the kids start joining you from around the neighborhood. Kids and human beings instinctively want to learn how to crawl. They want to learn how to run. They want to learn how to read. They want to be a part of the world. And when they have parents that are in neighborhoods where, everything they see is doom and gloom, that's why we have kids that grow up and they don't respect their teachers. And they don't realize that, oh my goodness, the teachers are going to the teachers are going to teach me how to read and how to do arithmetic. The teacher has the ability to change your life, but you got to give the teachers the chance. And parents, even if you're not the best parent, you've got to support your schools. You've got to support your teachers. You got to let them know that you have their back. Sometimes parents have their kids' backs, and sometimes their kids can be kind of nightmarish on teachers and stuff. Holy moly. Speaking of nightmare, you got 3 little lapdog nightmares there. So anyway, because I'm a recruiter, I see how a lot of tough neighborhoods around the country struggle to recruit teachers. Teachers go into these tough neighborhoods and realize that, number 1, the parents don't have their back. Number 2, the principals and the admins don't necessarily have their back. Their job is to make sure that the kids get passed through the grades. So what you end up having is a situation where kids graduate junior high and high school and they're still reading at a 3rd and 4th grade level. They have no real skills that are going to help them make it to that next level in life, and where they need to go to community college or to the university. A lot of times they end up barely making it through high school, and a lot of times it's because these principals in these schools basically just pass them regardless if they deserve it or not. And that goes back to a failure of both the parents and the schools. Well, Jesse, what about the teachers? Well, if the teachers aren't backed up by the principal and they aren't backed up by the schools, and the kids can just get away with doing whatever they want, how come all these kids in these impoverished neighborhoods, how come they don't have books, but they have plenty of cell phones? Have you noticed that? Do you realize that like half the problems in the schools are because these kids have their cell phones out? So the teachers they say, hey, Joey, put away your cell phone. And instead of Joey putting away his cell phone, he curses out the teacher. Sometimes they literally get up and fight with the teacher. Guys, that never happened when I was growing up. And if every single time we have a nutbag go into a school and shoot up the kids, every single time that happens, we have some yahoo that says, these kids need to have access to their cell phones so that they can make an emergency 911 call, which on face value sounds genius, right? Like, oh yeah, duh, we could really stop a lot of mischief if we let every single kid have their cell phone in class. Wrong. You're gonna freaking ruin the kids for the sake of safety, and I'm not even sure that having a cell phone is gonna make it that much more safe. If you want kids to have the ability to call 911 in an emergency, then you have to make it where they have access to only 911. You have to make it where there's some, maybe each classroom has a particular cell phone that is there on the wall so that somebody can hit 911 in an emergency. That's all you need. You don't need every single kid having access to their phone 24/7. And then when the teacher tells them to put their phone away, it's the same answer. I'm not doing that. As a matter of fact, I saw a video that was going around the internet last year where it showed this substitute teacher. He takes away Becky's phone. Well, I'm just using Becky's name, right? And the girl ends up pepper spraying the teacher. And not only does she pepper spray him, she pepper sprays him multiple times in front of like the principal, the security guard, other students. And what do the other students do? They pull out their phones so that they can go viral
and put it on Facebook and, put it on Instagram and put it on TikTok. And that's what our world is. Whenever anything's big and happening where they should be calling the police or calling, security guards or something, our kids are the ones that they just want to film it so they can get rich on YouTube or get rich on TikTok. And it's just, that's a sorry state of affairs. Do you realize that if you go to your local mall and somebody starts thugging you or beating you up or robbing you, there's a good chance that someone's going to pull out a phone and videotape it. But there's an even better chance that they could care less if something happens to you or your property, right? And they could care less about making sure that the cops find out about what's happening. Most of the time, their number one thought is, I'm going to go viral with this. That should be illegal. If you agree with me that that should be illegal, that you're filming instead of calling the police or the authorities, please let me know in the comments, because I'm telling you, if we flat out as a country said no more of this junk, we could stop a lot of these problems. If you pull out a phone, there's a good, I think it's called like a good motorist law here in Arizona, where if you drive and somebody's car is disabled and there's an accident, I think by law you're supposed to reach out to the authorities. Now, is that something that they can pin you on? I don't think they could ever catch you if you just drove by. But you're obligated. You're supposed to actually either render aid or at least make a phone call so that somebody can go out there and render aid to the person in this crash or the person that's off to the side of the road, right? We need laws like that in this country, because I just think it's a shame when there's a million people filming somebody getting assaulted. There was a video going around that was so gnarly I couldn't even watch it. And it shows these two high school girls, and all it said on the YouTube video was, one high school girl busts another girl's face open on the pavement. I couldn't even watch it. I grew up at a time where we told young ladies that it's not ladylike to be fighting, and for people to fight in school and security guards and teachers to watch while stuff happens, I'm sorry. In my brain, I look at that and I say, that's criminal. Because I don't know about you guys, if my kid's in your school, I expect him or her to be safe 100% of the time. And I just don't know how, we have this Miami mall alien. Did you guys see this? There's the mall in Miami where they were saying an alien was there, and then the other story was that there was a bunch of rambunctious teenagers that were fighting. And so they show literally the mall surrounded with like 200 cop cars. I imagine half those cop cars had more than one police officer in them, right? So you've literally got hundreds of police that are surrounding this mall in Miami. And the best way I can describe it is they thought there was an alien in there, right? So they're all there. You're telling me out of all those police officers, we can't have one or two extra ones in every single school? And if there's some schools out in the suburbs that have zero problems, we can't maybe take the police officers and the resources from there and put them in these tough inner city schools where the kids need a police presence so that they can learn? You're telling me we can't have a security guard that'll take away a student's phone so that there can be silence in the classroom so that the other kids there can learn? When one or two kids make it where the whole classroom can't learn again, that strikes me as criminal. And the thing is, these tough neighborhoods around the country, I can't believe the people accept it. That's what's so irritating. It's like they want the cops there when there's a problem, but then they don't want the cops there. It's so weird. It's like your left hand fighting with your right hand. And so your hands are constantly tied. Nothing ever gets fixed. Yet the politicians every year somehow get more money, out of the taxpayers' pockets. If you want your neighborhood to change, it starts with the kids. You have to let them know, hey, there's a 1 in a million chance that a bad guy is going to come into school and shoot it up. I don't think that validates everybody having a cell phone in the classroom. It just doesn't. We need to have Verizon, T-Mobile, and all these cell phone makers like iPhone and Android makers, we need to have it where the phones, right when they enter the school, no longer work. The only thing they can do is reach out to emergency services. Oh my God, Jesse, did you just cure the world's ills? I did. You're welcome. You know, if we have that many policemen that are constantly looking for people that are running red lights or that are looking for people that are speeding, it's not that that's not important. But I think it's more important at this point in our lives to get these policemen into the classroom so that the kids know that you're going to listen to the teacher. The principals need to know you're going to quit passing kids just so that you get a raise at the end of the quarter, right? You need to start actually bringing your level up. I'm upping my expectations, so up yours, you know? That's what we need. We need principals to be accountable. If you're not having kids that are passing, you're going to lose your job and you're going to be replaced by somebody that can get it done. And these security guards and these teachers to watch as another kid beats up on a teacher or another student, God, you guys should be thrown in jail for that. Jesse, we all know the teacher's hands are tied. I agree. That's why we need to change things. I see all these school board meetings where parents come to the school and they're upset about, you know, certain books in the library, and rightfully so. In some cases, you have borderline pornography books in our kids' libraries, okay? But what we should be doing is going to those same school meetings and saying, when are we going to get these cell phones out of these kids' hands? Why do 8, 9, and 10-year-old kids have their cell phones out? You know, we didn't have cell phones when I was growing up, but we had little video games, right? Like a little Nintendo, I forget the name of the little Nintendo PlayStation little play thing that we had, right? People would take those to school, and if they dared bring those out, they were taken away from them for the whole day. Hi, puppy. And that's what we need to do with cell phones. We need to have a police presence in all the schools, no ifs, ands, or buts. All the inner city schools. I think, like I said, if the suburb schools can make do with just a security guard, then fine, you don't need a police presence there. But these inner city schools, kids aren't learning at all. And then they go to the next level, they go to college, and they're lost. They take out student loans, they drop out, and then they're stuck with student debt forever in this never-ending cycle of poverty. They're thinking because they were the #1 student at their school, where everybody else is just so below the par level, you know, they think that they're ready for college, and then they go to college and they just get skunked. I'm telling you. Tell me if you agree or disagree in the comments. We've got to change something, and it's got to be changed immediately. And the logical thing is to get a better police presence in the school and to get these cell phones out of the classroom. The cell phones are literally ruining our country, and they've been doing it for the last 10 years, and apparently none of the school administrations will do anything about it. It's criminal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the half good story, half negative story, right? But I'll talk to you guys later. Have a beautiful day.